Welcome back to the big garden tour. We'll jump right in and talk about the plants. In this section, we're still in the front garden and the sun rises directly in front of the house here. And so we're filming this right before 7 in the morning. By 8:15 or so, the sun is up above some oaks across the street over here. And this absolutely cooks for hours and hours and hours. This was a turf area out here for the first 3 years of this garden project, if you've been following along with it. And now it has more of a cottage garden kind of look to it. There's a path that runs down the middle that you'll see, and a bench back in the back there that needs to be leveled out, but that's where it's going. It just hasn't been leveled out back there yet. I like the open look of this. I like that everything's kind of the same height. We have things, and we're putting more things on the foundation, but I like the taller things out a little distance from it, where you can see across it. You can see all the texture and colors, and you can see all the bees, and we can look out the front window up here and see all the activity out here in the garden, all the birds visiting, all the pollinators visiting. So it's kind of it's sometimes you accidentally on purpose discover the best way to design something. We were almost putting a lot of annuals in here as a kind of a holder and perennials, but I kind of like it open like this, and we'll probably end up keeping it some version of this in the future as well. There's a pineapple lily greeting people when they come in the front gate here, and this was a big popular item during the garden tour. When this sparkling burgundy pineapple lily first comes out of the ground in the spring, it's really an intense purple foliage, and then over time you lose the purple in the foliage and the flower spikes come up on it, and you see the bumblebee up in the flower spikes. This was a Plant Delights introduction, and I imagine, I don't know how many of these have sold over the years, but they're quite popular. It's a great plant. I imagine maybe next year at some point we'll have to divide it. It's definitely gotten quite a bit more mass to it over the last couple of seasons coming back. And so I'll judge it next season when it comes back out of the ground, but eventually it's gonna try to eat our entryway here. It's underplanted with a woolly thyme. This just went in, right before the open house. We were trying to get a couple more ground covers planted, and it is really liking this spot. And the goal is to get it to root out in between these stones on the path. And it's definitely going to do that, and do that pretty quickly, it looks like. It's very happy. It's very happy in that spot. Up above that, there's another one of these skyscraper salvia. This is skyscraper purple. We have pink on the other side. If you watched the first video in this tour, that one was one of the first plants we talked about in that tour. The purple one, while not really all that purple, it's purple-ish. I love the stems, these skyscraper salvia. I love the foliage, the stems, the calyxes have a similar color to the flower, so even after the flower drops off, it looks like it's still in flower. Native bees absolutely love this thing, and it's just a great looking plant overall, which is kind of interesting. I don't know that there's not a whole lot of salvia that I would go, well, the plant looks great too. Not just the flowering portion of it. One other thing that I'd point out right here at the front is this agapanthus is just starting to bloom here. Our agapanthus is in the back garden where the soil got warmer a little faster, I think, because this one has its roots kind of hidden below the fence. Jumped out and started blooming earlier. So all of these agapanthus are just starting back here. This is Twilight. Oh no, this is, which one is this one? Huh? Okay, Indigo Frost. Okay, I remember. We have so many agapanthus that you're gonna see in these tours. Agapanthus, one thing you need to know about agapanthus, because I think this is the first one we're seeing in this round of tour videos, they need to be well drained in the wintertime. So that's the key with agapanthus, is they're South African natives, and when they're awake and they're growing, they can use water. Not saying they want to be wet, certainly not, but if it's moist during the growing season and they can actually use it, they're kind of okay with that. But in the wintertime, if that area is moist or wet in any way, when that plant's dormant, that's when it's problematic for these agapanthus. But there's a ton of new ones. Southern Living Plant Collection, almost all of those in that collection are repeat blooming, which, we think about agapanthus as something that just comes up, blooms, and then you just have the foliage the rest of the season. This is the first of many flower spikes we'll get on this one during the season. I think we only have one rose in the garden. No, that's not true. There's actually a rose on the fence. It was one of the only plants that was actually an original plant to the property. There's a hidden rose that we'll show off later. That's usually in bloom up against the neighbors get to enjoy it because it's behind some screening plants. But the other one we have is this. It's a breeze rose. This is a Southern Living Plant Collection one. We'll give this one a haircut. It's finishing a round of flowering, and if we come through here and give it a little bit of a haircut, it will flush back out and give us some additional flowers. Very, very hardy rose, very disease resistant, just a ground cover, basically a ground cover rose. We had it back in the back and it was in a little too much shade, so it was stretching out a little bit taller. I've got it in more sun here, but now it's a bit hidden, so we may still not have found the best place for it, but it will eventually have a home where it makes sense, because in this full sun it'll only get about this tall and this wide. Keep it this wide. It won't probably get wider than that, and you can just prune it a couple times a season and just get it to rebloom. But it's a great plant. Our first choice Caryopteris is in the process of deciding whether it wants to live or die. We likely underwatered it. I've been thinking about it since it started. We're in a drought. We've had a couple of rains, and you can see the ground is wet here this past week. But I think these mature plants that had their roots a little bit deeper down in the soil, when we were digging, even after watering a little bit out here, if you dug down 3 or 4 inches, it was just bone dry, just dust down 3 or 4 inches down in the ground. This area out here toward the fence was not amended as much as other areas were in the garden. And so I think it just got dry, and then we just sent one stem at the time die on it. It does have some living part to it. And so again, we're trying not to do some of the maintenance in the garden leading up to this tour video so that we could have a conversation about things that we're doing out here during the summertime. We'll just go through here and cut off all the dead parts off of this and see if, it will give us some additional growth from the bottom. It probably will, because part of it has not faded. We've gotten some rain and it's probably putting on new roots under the ground. So I think it's probably going to survive this, and we'll just cut it back ultimately. This is an interesting one. We've got these Baptisia were sent to us from the Chicago Botanic Garden, and it's ones that they're in the process of introducing. Beautiful foliage on these. This one has kind of a yellowish flower on it, and great looking plants, except for one thing has shown up here. We've got a creature that's not supposed to be here in our area. This is a Genista broom moth that laid these caterpillars, and these caterpillars will quickly devour. They mostly lay, usually create the caterpillars on things in the pea family. Baptisia is in the pea family, and you can actually tell kind of by this foliage. A lot of things in the pea family have similar foliage to this. You definitely tell from the flowers on Baptisia that they're in the pea family. And I read somewhere that it'll actually they'll also attack crepe myrtles, which aren't in the pea family, but they're for some reason we'll lay them on crepe myrtles as well. What we'll do with this is not, our garden is for pollinators, and if it was a native caterpillar, native something, and it was on a plant out here, we'd absolutely leave it alone, let nature take its course. Most of these perennials evolved with our native pollinators, and they can be eaten to the ground, like things like milkweed, and then they just come right back the next season. But this is a foreign invader that is going across the country. And what we'll do is just come in here and cut the branches off that have the caterpillars, that's grouping of caterpillars on them, and at least reduce the number on them. That's what we'll do. Put on a glove, cut that stuff out, and dispose of the caterpillars as best we can. We'll miss a couple, but at least it won't be enough to completely eat the plants back to the ground. But that's an interesting one. I get a question like that, how would I handle? This is a foreign invader, right? This is not a this is not a native on a native. It's a native plant, but not a native moth. So there you go. This Cedric Atlantica we moved out from the fence. This one's called Sapphire Nymph, and it looked a lot better before I moved it. I did not expect we'd have 106-degree temperature this summer, which we set a record a few days ago for the hottest day ever here. I probably wouldn't have moved a few of the conifers around if I'd have known this was coming. as hot as it's been, as dry as it's been difficult to keep things wet. It looks like it's going to survive it, but it's definitely not happy. It happens. I mean, it's easy to, I need to stake it back up better, but I don't want to do a whole lot of anything with it right this minute. I'm hoping I can just see, at some point, see some new growth on it. Conifers do most of their growing in the spring and in the fall. So as soon as it starts, the nighttime temperatures start to cool down, September, October, we're going to know a lot about this plant at that time. If I can just get it, not drown it between now and then, that's also, right? Because it's not growing, it's not asking for a whole lot of water, it just would like to be evenly moist at this point. Kind of hard to do sometimes. But if I start to see some new growth on it, I'll get in here and stake it up, cut some of the dead branches out of it, and we're good to go. And I think it will. I think it will survive it, but it definitely is not happy. It was the wrong year to move it, but I could not have seen that coming. Planted 3 lantana in this spot, and really they were purchased because there was a gap here. When we cleared out this grass, opened up all this space up here by the front foundation, there were holes in the garden. We knew we were having the open garden, and we're like, well, lantana will fill this space quickly, and got 3 of them. One would have been the right number. This is a low-growing lantana called Bloomify White. The lantana are probably right at the top of the list for the butterflies overall, but all the pollinators visit them, and I can see all kinds of little pollinators on them now. 3 is more than it was needed to fill this little gap, and so they're growing pretty quickly, and they'll get a haircut at some point, along with some of the annuals in the annual border as well. We haven't done any control on them. Again, I wanted to show off what the garden looks like, without any little bit of maintenance that we need to do here and there. Gold sedum planted along the path. We have a lot of sedum in this garden. I'll put the names of them up on the screen as they present themselves. Most of them have some sort of yellow flower at some point during the growing season, and they're all good space fillers out here in the garden. We have one in the back garden. It's a little bit too good at filling space, but most of them are well behaved enough to be part of the garden without creating any additional maintenance. But this one's got a nice narrow foliage, and again, we'll have yellow flowers on it earlier in the season. And we hope it'll just creep down toward the stones on the stone path and go where there's open space and have us not have to mulch that spot in the future. Right there starts the annual border, and that we have a ton of different things in this mix this year. There are 2 types of gomphrena. The gomphrena were right at the top of people's list of things they were asking about during the tour. That's a snow white gomphrena that you're looking at right there. There's also a purple gomphrena in the mix, atomic purple. There is a 2 Summer Jewels salvias in the mix along here. There's Summer Jewels lavender and Summer Jewels pink. If you've been watching these tour videos so far, you've already seen Summer Jewels red as well. There's a dark opal purple basil mixed in here, and it's got a great foliage, just a great foliage color. And then there's a couple other salvia in here, one called Fairy Queen and one called Evolution. And then there's a couple of Kufia, Sweet Talk Lavender Splash and Sweet Talk Deep Pink. There's an Angelonia called Serena Rose. And then we have these Chinese string eggplants, and the eggplants are producing tons of eggplants, and those purple eggplants are incredibly decorative in this grouping of plants. This has turned out really beautifully, and it's just absolutely covered in pollinators from the time the sun comes up in the morning until it goes down at night. You can see how the annual border has filled in completely now. Some of this was done from seed here at the house. A couple of things were purchased out and about. Most of it's pretty easy from seed. Gomphrena is super easy from seed. Most of the salvia is. The basil definitely is. The eggplant definitely is. So I mean, most of this can be done fairly inexpensively. These are more muted colors than we normally use in this type of situation. So it is a little bit muted, but you see back behind it, you know, we've got clown college everywhere out here in the garden, you know, where you can see it from space, basically, all the colors of the foliage and the flowers and everything. And I like this one space in here, again, being open like this. The annuals are starting to eat the path a bit, and so we need to do a little bit of pruning on these. We won't prune everything all at once, because we would then, I mean, where would all these pollinators go tomorrow if they showed up and they were all gone? So a small portion of this will be cut each day for about a week or over 2 week period of time, something like that. That way we're not taking away from them, but it will get a little bit of control. These Gomphrena have gotten to the point where now they want to flop over, you know, when it rains. So a little bit of, you know, maybe take 20% off the top of them, and that will thicken them up some, and they'll just come right back out of that. And but that's the maintenance. That's the entire maintenance. These have not been, so I fertilized the entire garden back in February, early March, just to show you how little I fertilize. And then these were fertilized with an organic liquid fertilizer once before folks showed up for the open garden. Everything else that these things are growing out of is compost and wood chips that have broken down, mulch that has broken down over time, and a little bit of prep that I had done on the lawn before the lawn went in, where these annuals are sitting. There you go. I mean, without pushing them all that hard, we're getting all of this color and all of these pollinators out of it. There's a container in the middle of the bed, and again, these beds aren't necessarily finished completely because all of this space just became available to us, but there is a beautiful container, one of the Michael Carr design containers out here. We have several of them in the garden. It's got one of the better boxwoods in it. This is Skylight. We've already seen Skylight. We'll see the other 3 varieties coming up at some point, and I can cut this into any shape that I want to cut it going forward. And it's got celosia planted around it. This is Kimono Red celosia, and we may need to get a couple of them here or there cut away from the boxwood just a bit. But the bees are on this celosia. They embed themselves down in this celosia, and just, you can see it moving when they're trying to work their way through it to get the nectar out of these celosia flowers. But you know, nice little pop of color here in the garden. There's an agastache back here called Golden Jubilee, and it does really well for us. Comes back every year. It's not in the, you would look at it and go, well, that's not in the best spot, but it's in the only spot that will keep any gold color on it. If we put this one out in the sun, it loses the gold foliage. It blooms pretty much all summer long, even under the shade of this dogwood, and it's got nonstop pollinators on it. Got another mulberry coming up I see back here behind it. That's another theme of the tour videos, is mulberries being a complete and total pain out here in the garden. But agastache, always great for pollinators, not necessarily the showiest things for us. It's one of those really difficult things, I think, for growers. You know, they want to put things on shelves at garden centers that will be picked up and taken home, and so we tend to put the most floriferous things out, and sometimes the most floriferous things aren't actually the things that draw the most pollinators. Sometimes it's these things that have subtle flowers on them. The other nice thing about agastache is your deer aren't going to eat it, and rabbits aren't going to eat it. It's in that Lamiaceae with these square stems are sometimes a giveaway for that mint family. So it's a great plant to put in your garden, but the gold foliage one needs a little bit of afternoon shade to make sure it stays gold like that. This is a new abelia that got added to the garden this season. This is Suntastic Pink. So we have Suntastic Pink, Suntastic Peach, and Suntastic Radiance in the garden. The Radiance has a little bit more of a yellow in it. This one definitely has a little bit more of a kind of an off-white coloration in the variegation, and the Suntastic Peach turns a peach color in the wintertime, and then it has really a bright yellow variegation. So that's the difference. They're all 3 super compact, maybe the most compact of the variegated abelias. It is blooming right now. Pollinators go crazy for them. The 3 The 3 lantana are trying to eat it from one side, and the annual border is trying to eat it from the other. So we will get in here again. There's going to be a little bit of pruning. As these videos are wrapping up, we're going back and doing some of the pruning that needs to be done out here. But I just kind of wanted to show you, you know, some of the issues that we would have in the garden. You know, summertime can be tough for a lot of reasons. You know, there is a little bit of ongoing maintenance, but it doesn't take too long to prune these things. We'll prune this lantana back and toss it up under itself, you know, as to feed itself. We won't go, you know, it's not like we're going to create giant piles out here and turn it into a ton of work. This Japanese maple was moved from where the bench is on the other side that you'll see in one of the upcoming videos to over here. Had a great form. We got this one from Mr. Maple, and then a deer decided to come and chomp the top out of it last year. And I would come out here one morning, and all of a sudden there basically was nothing left. Luckily, it did not spur any growth down below the graft, and so we didn't have, you know, like a new plant trying to come from the ground or anything like that. And it's flushed right back out of that. I'll get in here and work on the form a bit later on, but it's surprisingly grown over a foot this year, and it got transplanted during that time as well. Another one of these skyscraper pink salvias. That was one of the, I think, like I say, one of the first plants we showed over there on the other side of the entrance. Great foliage, great flowers, great form. Can't speak highly enough of these skyscraper salvias, any of them. They're all interesting and make just great, you know, they play nice out here with everything else in the garden. Most popular and asked about plant in the garden is definitely the Empress of China dogwood. This is a Chinese evergreen dogwood, and it's evergreen, and then sometime around March it does drop a ton of leaves from the previous year as it's putting on new foliage the next season. When it comes into flower, it's flower to flower. Follow along with the channel at all, literally, or go over to Instagram. I'll, you know, usually every year put up some sort of photo on Instagram. The flowers, like a lot of flowers, will start kind of greenish, and then they get whiter and whiter and whiter. And it's the biggest lead up because the flower buds are on them as early as February. And by November, December, we'll start to see the flower buds have formed on it, and then they'll get bigger, 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 bigger. So it's like a 6-month lead up to this thing being in full bloom. We had the open garden on June 22nd. The peak flowering for this thing was about June 14th. And then all the flowers fell off of it. So basically nobody that came to the open garden saw hardly any flowers on it, although there's been a couple residual ones since. It forms a fruit behind it that will mature red and is edible. I've never tried them. Maybe somebody can let us know down below if they're any good, but it's supposed to be edible. And ours never really finish. I don't know if we just don't have enough time or whether the tree is mature enough, but they're on here. They just never finish maturing. I do see them on other Kusa type dogwoods maturing. This one has been all over the place with its Latin name. So it's been Cornus. Cornus is dogwood. So Cornus elliptica, Cornus elliptica variety Kusa, and several other things. Cornus angustata. So all over the place with the name on this thing, but it is absolutely beautiful. It's been very hard for growers to grow it. So as I'm talking about it and talking about how great it is, it's very difficult to find. Growers struggle with it, but it's great in the ground. It's one of those kinds of plants. There are actually many, many conifers in this garden. And when we have all of these annuals and perennials and other things, you know, showing off out here, they kind of disappear into the background. Then they come back, you know, in the wintertime. They're one of the main attractions of the garden. This is an arborvitae called Pancake. This is Southern Living Plant Collection piece. You see how nice this plant actually is. It's really beautiful bluish foliage. It almost has a little bit of pink in the newest growth on it. It's called Pancake because it has kind of a flat top as it grows. We've seen these in lots of gardens across the US. A lot of people watching can grow this plant. Super, super soft to the touch. Really love this Pancake arborvitae. We have, you know, it needs a lot of sun, but I think it's being helped a little bit that it's not 15 hours of direct sun here in Raleigh. As you go further north, it could definitely take more and more and more sun. And but man, super, super soft to the touch. Love this plant. We have our Caradonna salvia back here, Salvia nemorosa, is completely flopped over to the ground. This is the first year it's done this. If you saw Jay Sifford's beautiful garden up in West Jefferson, North Carolina, we've done a few videos with Jay Sifford now, I think 4. 2 from his garden in West Jefferson and 2 from a garden he designed over in Charlotte. If you've seen that, there's literally a bee on the camera right now. So Steph is managing. A bee has decided that the camera is a pollinator plant, and it's kind of funny. He's got these Caradonna salvia up there in West Jefferson. They're about this tall in the ground, and ours was too last year and the year before. It gets these tall flower spikes on it. We can cut it, and it keeps blooming. A lot of Salvia nemorosa kind of bloom out pretty quick and don't give us a color all summer. But this one will cut and come again, basically, you know, over and over, but it's laying flat to the ground. Sometimes this can be from over fertilizing, which we definitely don't do. Maybe it's too much organic material that's pushed a lot of foliage and it's weak and falling over. Or it could be that this dogwood has shaded it out too much, and so it's stretched, and so its stems just aren't thick enough. So it may be an indication that we actually need to pop this one out of the ground and move it to a slightly sunnier area. But definitely this salvia is worth having, even though it doesn't look like much in our garden this morning. I'm going to wrap this this particular part of the tour video up with that Little Bonnie spirea, which is still blooming. Really great looking spirea that we can, again, this one comes into full flower, pink flower clusters on it. Then we can give it a little bit of a shear and it immediately pops back out and starts blooming again. Not quite as heavy as it did in the spring, but it's a great, super compact spirea. I think that there's originally there were 3 of them planted there, and they've just kind of grown together in this mass. The new foliage on it's kind of a bluish color. Gets good fall color. Spirea not as much in the south as other places. We don't get the fall color on some of the plants that you would up in the north. Foliage sometimes gets just worn out on 100-degree days in the south, but Little Bonnie spirea is definitely worth having, because it's just, again, you get the full flowering, give it a little shear, boom, here it comes again, blooming again. So there is, I don't even know how wide this space is, how many different plants that actually was. This is probably no more than 20 by 12, 20 by 15, something like that. And you can see the number of plants that are packed pretty densely into this space, and the pollinators are absolutely loving it this morning. So thank you guys so much for following along. We'll be back continuing around the front garden. Thanks for watching.